Welcome to the Management Minute, presented by ManagingScrupulosity.com. Helpful pastoral guidance intended to encourage the effective management of your OCD and scrupulosity. Spiritual and not religious. A common statement that a person might hear in casual conversation is, "I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not religious." It's intended to provide an insight into the individual person's viewpoint about religion, often within the context of a conversation with a good friend or family member. Although descriptive and even casually useful as noted, I would assert that the statement is not often fully understood. What exactly does it mean when a person asserts that they are spiritual, but not religious? In order to understand the assertion and to put it into a helpful context, it is important to understand the difference between spirituality, practice, what we call religion, and discipline, the dogmas, the doctrines, the rules. There is an essential difference. Spirituality has many meanings, but in general, the meaning is that a person has an experience that leads them to an awareness that they are not the center of the universe. It is an understanding that there are essential relationships that define the human condition, that there are perhaps more questions than there are answers in the universe in which human beings live. All of this eventually leads a person to the question, what is it all about? And into the first question of the old catechism, who made me? Spirituality is often understood as a decision to embrace some idea of divinity, the sacred, mystery, or however a person may describe the awareness experienced. No matter how it may be described or understood, it is primarily an experience or an awareness of something or someone other than the individual self. Religious practice, on the other hand, is best understood as the mostly traditional and ritualistic expression of an awareness of the divine and the sacred. It is one way for an individual person to receive the help and the guidance that seems necessary in order to place the awareness of the divine into some sort of perspective. It seems, at least for many people, to be a choice mainly influenced by family, culture, and community. Whatever the most familiar and dominant practice of the community or of the family often becomes the practice of the individual person. Religious denominations such as church, synagogue, or mosque are each distinctive ways through which religious practice is engaged. Here's where it gets tricky. There are some men and women who are engaged in religious practice that have not yet experienced the idea of other than self. They are not, for a variety of reasons, well-versed or practiced in the process of self-reflection that is necessary to be truly spiritual. In this sense, they are kind of going with the flow and can easily slip from one religious practice to another, or for that matter, from a religious practice to no religious practice with ease. Their practice, or lack of practice, is not anchored in the experience that is essential for an authentic spiritual response. This is often the contact point for most people who describe themselves as spiritual and not religious. For some people of all ages and temperaments, they have simply never been reflective to the point of arriving at the necessary awareness that sparks the idea of the divine. This is not the result of carelessness or even sin, but it is rather simply descriptive. For still others who have engaged in the necessary self-reflection that brings awareness, for a variety of reasons they have chosen not to name their newfound awareness as spiritual. These people often choose another way of describing the experience. For example, science may be more persuasive than spirituality, and perhaps is perceived as capable of providing the necessary answers to the questions. In this example, such a person may describe themselves as a non-believer, neither spiritual or religious, perhaps even atheistic or agnostic. The third component is discipline. Discipline is the distinct rituals, rules, regulations, dogmas, doctrines that are descriptive of the religious practice. Although there are some similarities between the disciplines of one religious practice and another, there are also points that connect and complement each other. A particular insight is helpful here is to note that disciplines that are more ancient in their practice are often more tolerant of other religious disciplines and practices. With age comes confidence, and perhaps the understanding that what is essential and important is the integration of all three components, and not just one component. How does scrupulosity fit into all this? Is it possible to be scrupulous and not be spiritual? Can you be a scrupulous person and not be religious? The answer to both of these questions is yes. Can you even be agnostic and atheistic and scrupulous? Yes, it happens, and with some regularity. The reason the answer is yes, because scrupulosity has nothing to do with religious practice or spirituality. It is a disorder. The obsession and the compulsion of a scrupulous person who fixates on religious discipline as a primary manifestation of their scrupulosity is fundamentally no different than a person who fixates on other disciplines, rules, regulations. It is perhaps more complicated because it's wrapped up in the language of God, sin, heaven, and hell, which is the particular manifestation of a specific religious practice. But the suffering is just as intense for another person who fixates on something else. The disorder has many forms, but the suffering is equally devastating. Perhaps understanding, or at least appreciating, the three components that we have discussed may be helpful. The arena for the scrupulous disorder is found in the engagement with the discipline of the religious practice. A scrupulous person can be a very spiritual person. A scrupulous person is just as good in their chosen practice as any other person who engages the practice. The struggle is in the third component, an overemphasis and concern on the discipline. If you wish to learn more about this topic, please refer to the citation that we have provided. Please visit YouTube at Catholic OCD for a variety of video presentations on important topics. If you wish to support this ministry, please visit the funding platform at patreon.com, also at Catholic OCD.